Hello everyone, welcome back to the series of how to for each of the powers. Today we're going to be talking about Japan and kind of like what they should do round one and kind of some strategies later on that will really help them out. But the thing with Japan is they're kind of a very I would say Japan is probably one of the most difficult powers to play in the game. Japan for the Axis and UK for the Allies. Just because Japan has to worry about kind of taking Russia's economy, taking China, as well as taking India, and they have to do this without the US coming in and attacking them. And the reason I think UK is kind of like the ally, like the hard player for the allies, is because they have to decide whether they want to kind of just spend in India or if they want to spend up here in the UK to kind of attack Germany. So it's really difficult too when the UK player really wants to invest in India as Japan, because then you're kind of, especially if they're focusing you as Japan, it's really hard to play. Um, I just started a single player game, so nothing like in the board has really changed. I just wanted to kind of leave it like that, just so if there just so I could go over the different scenarios of what you could do for round one of Japan. I'm gonna show you guys like my kind of starting move that I always do, and the only reason I do this is it's called strategy, like it's called like the round three India strategy, and it's where you take India by round three. I think it really benefits the Axis if you do this. There's a ton of videos over it too, if you want to go look at that, but I think taking India as Japan is one of the most important things you can do. But if you really don't want to do this type of build, and instead you want to pressure Russia, or if you want to start building a fleet instead because the U.S. is coming, you can always do that too. But I'm going to show you kind of like what I do when I'm going for India. To start it off, you always want to get a couple transports, and the reason why you want to get a couple transports is because if you have them, you have a ton of troops right here that you're going to have to start shipping off to the mainland, and to do that you need transports. And as Japan, you only start off with 2 transports, and that's if the UK player doesn't end up killing one. So actually I think it might be 3 yeah, I think it's 3 transports, because you start off with 4 guys right here, and then artillery and a tank. So yeah, I definitely think it's 3 transports. And then you have 9 credits left, which I always just like maximize the amount. Sometimes I'll go like infantry and tank, but I definitely think it's worth it if you just go 2 artillery instead, just so you have a little more attacking power for those infantry to pair up with those infantry so they're attacking on it too. But that's my go-to kind of move for Japan. But again, this all depends on if the UK was really aggressive and they ended up taking this little fleet down here with their Australian fleet and the one in India. And if they manage to take this, then you kind of are like, okay, now you're down an aircraft carrier, battleship, and 2 fighters. And then you also kind of have to think too, is Russia like kind of pushing all of their troops up into this Yukit up here? Because if they're doing that, then you're going to be able to take this for free, and you really don't want to pressure Russia if they're piling a ton of troops into Yukit, because then you're going to lose a lot of troops, like Russia will too, but at the end of the day, you're not really too worried about Russia when you're going for India. You really don't need a ton of troops up here. But another like attacking thing that you kind of want to take is China right away. You don't want the US holding these for IPC. It might not seem like a lot, but in the long run, when the US is shipping transports over to Germany, or if they're building a fleet against you, you want to kind of minimize that, and you want to grow your economy, because starting off, you only start off with 30. And that's if, again, that's if the UK didn't take this fleet down here and also take the East Indies, which I kind of showed that on my last video on UK. That's like my opening move, just because it completely screws over Japan. Um, but yeah, so that's my purchase. But another purchase that I like, and this is only if, as Germany, I'm trying to pressure and take Russia, like, right away. This is only if I'm trying to take Russia right away as the Axis. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and purchase an industry. That way you can put it on Manchuria, and you're able to start shipping out tanks, 2 each turn. And actually, I put them up here, just that way I can take Russia's IPC, and then I start sending them to India. And I did this strategy against Manex, and Manex is in the 1v1 against Manex, and it worked out really well. So I always go one factory. And another reason I do this purchase is if the UK is definitely starting to like shore up India a lot, and you kind of want to do this too if the US is pressuring you. That way you don't have to have a bunch of transports in the water, and you can start focusing on a fleet instead. That way you don't have to have transports constantly shipping troops to the mainland. You'll always have a factory to be able to put down troops. That way you don't have to worry about guarding your transports. And then what this allows you to do too is this allows you to buy some sea, so that way you can build your fleet up. And I always go for the aircraft carrier because you start off with so many planes as Japan, but I'll only go with the aircraft carrier if I ended up losing this down here. Um, and the reason why is because this is a big kind of buff between the two fleets, especially if the US is coming at you and you have two fully loaded aircraft carriers with 4 planes on them. It's just a huge defense. And then the next turn, I'll make sure I get another battleship. That way, especially if this fleet's gone. Again, it's all about whether this fleet is alive or not. And the reason why is because when you have 2 battleships, it takes 2 hits to take it down. So that's 2 free hits that your fleet can kind of just defend against. And then with those 4 fighters that are defending on 4s, it's really kind of like a stall game between the two if the US kind of tries to attack Japan, because then it's just who's going to attack first. And as Japan, you really don't have to attack, especially if your fleet's smaller, because you can always just buy sea right here, and then the U.S. is forced to make a move. But yeah, so you can always do that. And what I've seen people do in games sometimes too is they'll actually buy 2 of these factories, and I've seen people put them on both the East Indies and Borneo, which is kind of weird because it's like you're gonna have to have transports down here anyways, so you might as well just go for the 4 or 5 different transport builds and just ship it down right away. But I don't know. You could try that out if you wanted, but I just think this works better. Buying this and then some sort of sea. You can buy like a cruiser and a cruiser or a destroyer, sorry, and a sub. That way it kind of gives you a little more attacking power and room to work with. But again, I just like maximizing my IPC to the fullest and just buying the aircraft carrier. It gives a lot more value, I think, in my opinion. Um, but we'll just do the build that I was talking about to take India by round 3, just because I think this is the more successful build. Um, Again, it all depends on if the US is deciding to go for Japan or Germany. If they start going for Germany, this is okay to do. If you end up doing this build and you see the US kind of being more aggressive, you'll be able to take India by round 3, but the US will have a large fleet on Japan's door, so you just have to be kind of worried about that. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you a couple attacking moves that I like to do. So the first one, we'll just pretend that this fleet ended up. We'll just ignore this fleet because you don't really want to expand your. You kind of want to put all of your ships together with those transports to protect them. So we'll pretend like this is out of the picture and this is out of the picture. So we're not going to attack this and this. Um, Now, one of the moves that I like to do, especially if I'm buying a factory, is kind of weaken the U.S. And what I'll do is I'll send in a sub, fighter, aircraft carrier, cruiser, and then the bomber from Japan. And that always ends up to win. Like, I'll never lose the fighter or the bomber, but you will probably lose like your sub, your aircraft carrier, or your cruiser, depending on what the rules went. And now the big thing is just moving troops from the islands to the mainland. So again, depending on what Russia did up here, I'll send an infantry and a tank up here into the SSR, along with a couple. I'll just send 1 infantry, just because again we're going to be going for India, so we want more troops kind of funneling down here. Um, but then you'll go ahead and throw the 2 troops there. You'll send all 4 infantry over here. You'll throw. I like to kill this right away too, this fighter. That way it's not defending India. And it just kind of depends if the Russian player moved his guy right here, but we'll go ahead and take that from him. And then right here, this is all just about maximizing your credits. So you just want to go ahead and take Burma. You throw the fighter there, and this is where you have the transport. So you'll be able to throw a transport, take these 2 guys, and put them on Yunnan. And then you'll have an extra infantry to throw on Yunnan. Because I think, yeah, okay. I'll just making sure we have that. And then if this fleet is still alive, you can go ahead and use the battleship to send a bombardment. And then you also have these 2 fighters to send in. which is really nice. And then we'll also have the battleship bombardment right there, and we can also throw a fighter. I'm actually going to throw the fighter right there. And I think that's pretty good. That looks like a pretty solid like start to the Japan move, because once you get all your transports up here, because after this I'll have 3 infantry left, I'll have 1 artillery left, and I purchased 2 artillery, so I'll have 3 and 3, right? And I purchased 3 transports right here, so I'll have 4 transports total to move my infantry and everything down. So then on the next turn for round 2, once I have these 3 or 4 transports, I'll move everything down to Burma. So that's why I want to take Burma, is because I want to control this area. That way I'll be able to put fighters there as well next round to kind of defend that. That way India doesn't try a little attack right there. And the reason why you want to take China right away is because you don't need these infantry on the sides for the transports to pick up right away, because you still have to place the transports down next turn. So that way, after this turn, you'll be able to move it down into Yunnan and this Kwatang, I think it's called? Yeah, Kwatang. And the transports on the side will be able to pick it up. And once you have all your transports on, or once you have all your troops on Burma, you'll be able to pick up the 2 guys from East Indies, send them in, send everything in along with your fighters and bombers and everything. That's why this bomber, you'll be able to land on this island after this attack. You'll be able to land the fighter and the bomber on this island, and next turn you'll be able to put it in position to go ahead and do an assault onto India. So that's why Japan is, like, the strategy works so well. But again, it all kind of depends on what the UK player did, and especially if America's going free, because it does take about 2 or 3 turns for America to kind of regroup, because they don't start off with a lot of places to attack. The only thing they can really attack is down here in Morocco, and to do a counterattack if you do end up doing this. But again, we're not going to be attacking this because, yeah, I need to cancel it actually. We need to send the bomber in over there. Yeah, you can send your bomber in right there, by the way, if you didn't know that. But you want to just kind of, you can also send the cruiser right there. You kind of just want to consolidate to make it seem like your fleet is bigger than it actually is. And that's basically it. I wonder if this, yeah, this plane can actually reach right here too. So you might as well do that. But you've utilized everything. Even if you think that, hey, this fighter, like, we've kind of overkilled this territory, you might as well send it in just to be safe. Because if you're not using it, then you're kind of wasting that turn and that fighter. But we'll go ahead and just do the rolls to see how they play out, just to kind of show you guys what you would lose and what you would have left over. So nice, the battleship hit there. And the tank hit, perfect. And now you have a tank up here, which is really good, especially if they move these. Most likely they'll move these 2 over to Yukit. And if you don't want to attack this and you kind of just want to stall that right there, you can blitz in and out, take 1 free IPC, which is really nice. That's why I sent the tank up there. So let's go ahead and take that out real quick. This should be pretty easy since we have those fighters. And only 1 hit right there. That's perfect. Kind of unlucky rolls right there, but I think we should be able, maybe not. Alright, well, I'm gonna keep attacking just because I want this fighter dead, even if you don't take a space, and it didn't hit. Perfect. This battle is always very kind of shaky. Sometimes I'll lose it, like, badly, sometimes I'll win amazing, sometimes it'll just be even out like that. Now we'll go for Burma, just so we can maximize Japan's IPC. And like that, this is what your final kind of, like, end screen will look like once you're done with Japan's turn, if you go ahead and copy my move. But you'll want to just consolidate your fleet again. You can move the aircraft carrier back. You can move this. See, the sub is the only thing that is out of reach of everything. So again, you just kind of want to push everything back together. You can throw your aircraft carrier there. You'll be able to throw, I think, yeah, we can throw all our planes back on there. And then I always put the bomber and the fighters together. That way, if anybody, like, if anything's in reach, like another bomber or a fighter, it's protected. You won't lose as much. And I think that's everything that we can move. and now we have a full fleet along the coast, and we're already kind of gearing up for an attack onto India. And like I said, we have 4 transports now that'll be able to take the 3 infantry, 3 artillery down to Burma next turn. The 2 infantry, 1 artillery will move down. We'll have our fighters, our bomber on here. We'll be able to move 5 infantry. We'll be able to move 2. We'll be able to take these 2 places in China next turn, and we'll be able to move 3 infantry down to Kwatong next turn. We'll have our extra transport right there as well to move. Actually, no, we won't be able to move 2 infantry down here next turn, but we'll be able to move 1 transport over here. That way they can take the 2 infantry off the East Indies into the battle, and that's just a ton of attacking power right away, especially if you have a lot of pressure going onto Russia, because Russia won't be able to move their fighters down to help protect India. If anything, India sends their fighters to help protect Russia. But like I said, once again, this is probably the most consistent strategy that I have used and seen when playing Axis and Allies for round 1. And then as far as round 2 goes, I would just say, since you already have your transports, you don't need to buy any more transports. But if there's transports, if he moves this transport up in reach, just go ahead and buy some, like a fighter and then a couple infantry, just so Japan's protected. But if not, then I would just say focus on building the fleet up, just in case the US starts to come over. But yeah, so I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll catch you guys later.